Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 226 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Tonight, we're going to preview Week 15 in the CFL, but we've got a bit of a different show than normal planned for you. We've got a very special guest in the building who we'll introduce in just a couple of minutes. So instead of doing our usual game-by-game previews, we're going to switch it up a bit. We'll catch up with our lovely guests here. We'll do a brief look at our favorite storylines for this upcoming week, and then we'll do the fantasy players to watch and the betting picks for all of the games at the end of the show. As for the regular crew, I'm Ryan, joined by Adam. Adam's here tonight. Adam, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. Harvest is going well. We won't talk about a certain game last week. I don't think at all.
Oh, right? I think we will. You're lucky Trey's not here tonight, but I did get instructions to give you some. No, I'm kidding. Trey didn't give me any instructions. No.
Oh, I'm sure he has his whiteboard filled with positive things about the certain team in question.
Yeah, a great game last week. I enjoyed it. I don't know about you. We're also live on a variety of different platforms thanks to our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV, which you can learn more about at gametimetv.ca or on facebook.com/gametimetv.mb. Send in your comments, send in your questions in the live chat. I see a couple of people filling in there already, which is wonderful. Good evening to all of you there. We also, before we go any further, want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. If you want additional content beyond what you hear on our weekly episode, also make sure you check out our Discord community. It's free. It's fun. The link is in the episode description for that. Adam, who do we got with us tonight?
Well, for once, I'm not in the minority, I guess, in CFL fans this week, because this gentleman beside me here is a Rough Rider fan. He comes out of the good old US of A, out of, I think, Washington State, if I'm not mistaken. This is Coach Phil. He's kind of a CFL kind of guy and loves reacting to CFL videos and highlights and all sorts of cool stuff. Loves talking CFL. So I figured, you know what? We don't get enough Americans up here to talk to CFL about. So I guess, Coach Phil, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, y'all. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great night when we get to talk football with somebody like you as well. You know, I talk to Adam every week. I talk to Trey pretty regularly, Mike as well. Kind of nice to get somebody else in here to talk football with other than those guys.
I ain't that interesting. I'm just a brother that's pretty decent at what he does right now.
Hey, right on in that you are. I guess before we go any further, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Coach Phil? I mean, Adam gave a bit of an introduction,
but Coach Phil. Well, Coach Phil is funny. It's a funny thing. So I always looked at Coach Phil like I've been coaching for 11 years since I was 18 years old, and I've been doing it for a long time, man. And it's funny, like the misconception people get, and I experienced this going to LDC and at the Banjo Bowl. People ask, "Are you like this all the time?" No, I'm not all the time like this. When I'm in a football environment, yes. Off camera or like outside of football, I'm very chill. I'm a very chill person. I like my privacy. I like being with my kids, video games, that type of stuff. But Coach Phil is brash, in your face, arrogant, gonna tell you like a TI is, don't give a damn what you think about him or whatever. And it's paid off in a way, being that way. But it's just a piece of me, man. Coach Phil is a guy that loves the game, very passionate about the game, and just love talking it. So that's Coach Phil in a nutshell.
So then I guess I got to ask the big question is, why the CFL? I mean, Washington State, I'm sure that's NFL country, especially with the Seahawks nearby and everything else. What got you interested in the CFL game?
So to be frank with you, I've always loved history. And it kind of ties into the CFL. I love just learning history about anything and everything. I love learning history about sports. I like learning about leagues that people don't really pay attention, because all we hear about is the NFL. and it's great. NFL is great, but I lucked into the CFL. I told this story, but real quick, down here in Washington, we have CBC. It was Channel 99 when I was growing up. And I used to only watch CBC because The Simpsons came on at 4:00. It was on for 2 hours. So I would watch The Simpsons, but like Thursdays or Fridays or whatever, it would be CFL games. And I kind of like, I was so young, I didn't really understand the CFL, but I knew of it. Then as I got older, I was on a plane ride coming back home from a football camp in Monmouth, Maine, and I watched Johnny Manziel's first game. And I watched the entire thing from the beginning all the way to the end. I had so many hours on the damn plane. What else was I gonna do? And I didn't know then that the seeds were being planted, because then I think it was like a couple years later, we went into the pandemic, and I was at home. I wasn't really doing nothing. I was going through a lot at the time, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get into YouTube, and I started doing it. And then I came across the first video I ever really reacted to for CFL. It was like I think it was the best offensive plays ever, and it was a Geno Lewis hurdling somebody. He actually retweeted it on Twitter, and that was funny to me. And it just kind of snowballed. And then I got into the player highlights, and I started watching. I got into the 2021 playoffs, and then it just went from there. So I fell in love, and I started doing more history, watching old games back on YouTube. I remember watching about the American experiment they did with Shreveport and Memphis and San Antonio, and how it was in Baltimore, how it was considered a flop. And I was like, it was too early. They were experimenting, doing things that the NFL would never do. And I was like, I love this. So that's how I got into the CFL, and I'm here.
Awesome. Well, happy to have you as part of the CFL community. And, being a football fan is one thing, taking that and turning it into content creation is another. I mean, we're all on the same crazy ride in one way or another. You talked about it a little bit, but you've got the YouTube channel, Coach Phil Reacts. How did that start for you? What got you into that kind of avenue?
A lot of my players, they were like, Coach, you should do YouTube, man. You always got crazy things to say. You're funny, but you were very insightful. I was like, nah, I never thought about it. Just didn't cross my mind, because I always watched YouTube. I didn't even start watching YouTube till I was like 14. So I didn't really know much about YouTube. And then like I said, the pandemic hit, and I was sitting at home, and I bought a rinky-dink gray microphone off of Amazon. I got a crappy green screen. I invested a little bit, Elgato. And and then I got a little Logitech camera, and it all started. So that's where it was.
So I know you said you talk a lot about you've looked at a lot of the CFL and the history and everything else. And I guess I got to ask, is there a favorite player that you have back in the day? And also, who's a favorite current player that you have in the CFL?
Oh my God! When I saw this question, I was like, man. But the first person that comes to mind, and I'm gonna say his name, and I would love to interview him if I ever get the chance to, Lord willing. Alan Pitts. Alan Pitts was like Randy Moss before Randy Moss in a way. And I know with Alan, I watched the documentary. They do his story they used to do. And I listened to what he said, and I understood his pain, which is why I know why he's very private, because he always felt like he didn't get the respect he deserved in Calgary. And that team was loaded with obviously Doug, Dave Sapunjis, Kelvin Anderson, Alondra Johnson. Alondra Johnson is another one of my favorites from back in the day. But Alan Pitts was like the one that like opened my eyes. Like, wow, there's somebody similar to like Randy Moss. He was a mixture of Randy Moss and Chris Carter. And it was beautiful. It was jazz music watching him play. Although he did, in a way, like I didn't like the way his career ended. It was kind of like weird, wonky how it happened. I thought he should have done more. He only played for 9-10 years, and he was gone like Barry Sanders. But that's my guy from back in the day. Currently, Willie Jefferson. Come on, you know that. Willie. But Willie's my favorite player, but my guys are Sam, Tevin, and Sean, Jamal. Those are my dogs, man. I got to meet them. We finally put it together. I got to meet them at LDC. Those are my guys, man. Those are my bro. Oh, he's going to kick my behind if I don't mention him. Sean Lemon, we talk a lot. That's the big bro. Willie's the big bro. Reggie Stubblefield, young guy off of Montreal. We actually just talked the other day. So those are some of the guys I watch. There's a lot of guys, but those are the guys that, you know, I routinely talk to, and, you know, they're my guys.
And on that note, how exciting is it to see Sean Lemon finally sign on with a team? You know, a couple weeks into the season, he's been tearing it up on that Montreal defensive line. I can't believe it took that long for him to get a shot this season after the season he had last year.
That made me mad. That made me really mad that a guy like him it took a while. And I did the video on Sean. I reacted to his highlights, and literally like 3 days later, he got signed. And people were messaging me saying, your video made it happen. I was like, no, absolutely not. Sean just needed to go to the right situation for him. And I was calling for, I was like, man, if he went to Winnipeg, that's unfair. Right? Write the Grey Cup for them. But I also want him to go to Saskatchewan. But Montreal was the right place for him, and I'm still happy for him. So he's tearing it up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's got the talent where he'd probably tear it up anywhere he goes if given the opportunity to do so. You listed off a lot of your current favorite players or members of the Riders. Of course, we talked about it a little bit already. You are a Riders fan. Outnumbered 2-1 tonight. This might be a first on the podcast for me by a couple of Riders fans here. What made you choose them? What made them your team?
Being from Washington, growing up a Seahawks fan, you equate a lot of the qualities and the culture of what the similar between the Rough Riders and the Seahawks, and it's so scary. Other than the Pete Carroll, Craig Dickinson comparison, there ain't no comparison. Pete Carroll has won at the damn highest level, and Craig is Craig. Craig and Dave frustrate me so damn much. But that's another story for the other day. None but love for Craig. But no, it's the environment and experiencing it. And I love their logo. I love the Rough Rider logo so damn much. I'm gonna get it tattooed. That's how serious I am as a Rough Rider. Like that logo is so that logo is so symbolic. Like, you look at something, you're like, I can relate to that. I can relate to the logo because it's so beautiful. It's unique. It stands out. And not a lot of teams can pull off green. But the green speaks to me. And you ain't never going to see me wear green except for Rough Rider stuff. My daughter, Ashley, today, she wore my Rough Rider shirt to school, one of my Rough Rider shirts to school today, even though she's a Willie Jefferson fan. So we'll get her there.
Well, hey, Willie Jefferson was a Rider before he was a Bomber. We all know that. So, I mean, you know, Winnipeg likes taking old Riders. I'm just saying. But
true, and making them better.
Well, that's debatable. How'd Weston Dressler do for you? Anyways.
How's Nick Dembski doing for us?
I blame Chris Jones for that.
That's not a good point.
Can I say one thing before we next question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Chris Jones set back the Saskatchewan Rough Riders for years, the same way he's setting back Edmonton. And you can put that on wax and let it be known.
Yeah. No, you won't have me arguing it one bit. I mean, he all he did was pick athletes. I mean, if a guy could run fast, okay, you're on my team.
We'll talk.
Right?
We'll talk.
Yeah, for sure. Trey over in the chat, I mean, he's got a good shade of Rough Rider green on right now. Maybe a little too light, but it'll work. Phil, I guess I got another question for you here. I mean, you traveled out here for the Labor Day Classic, and you traveled out here for the Banjo Bowl, or as now that's being called the Labor Day after Labor Day game, or I don't know why they're trying to go away from the Banjo Bowl, but nevertheless, that's a
meatball saying that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, y'all are trying to go away from the naming convention. We're still marketing the heck out of it here in Winnipeg.
There's a lot of money on that. There's a lot of money in the Banjo Bowl.
All I know is as long as Scott Schultz is around, it'll be the Banjo Bowl. And Troy Westwood. As long as those two are around, it's the Banjo Bowl. Nevertheless, how was your experience out in Regina? And then I guess going into Winnipeg as a Rider fan?
I was gonna say something, but never mind. No, the experience at the Labor Day Classic, first of all, was absolutely amazing. One of my greatest football accomplishments was just being there and experience everything. Even just being at the University of Regina game, that was amazing. Fan Day, amazing. The game, amazing. Banjo Bowl. Why? What Nancy Kerrigan? Why? Like, what did we do to deserve that? we walked in there, we went into the abyss, and we came out a carcass. Like, it was bad, but the environment was amazing. It was funny. People were just nice, and we talked our trash. We had a good time, man. It was great. And if it was up to Michael Ball, you know what? I'm gonna shut up. Never mind. Anyway, the devil is a lie. It was just great, man. Everybody was nice. Food was great. Fans were talking their trash. If I have to hear one more time, that's another Blue Bomber first down, I'm going to bash my head against the seat. I did kick the seat, and my toe still hurts. But it was great, man. Great time.
Well, you see, we started that chant during the dark years where we only got like 4 of those games. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because there was a guy in the stands and he was talking trash. And then I looked at the banners and I looked back at him, and I think he knew what I was about to say. And I said, I'm not the best at math, but 91 to 2019, y'all really ain't got no room to talk right now.
I mean, lately we do.
But... No. Y'all have no room to talk about anything, because it took y'all that long to get a cup. I understand we've only won 4 in 104 years, correct? Yeah. I'd rather take those 4 than having a doggone 20-something year streak of not even getting close or sniffing. Yeah, you got there with Kari Jones and Milt, but y'all choked for Milt. But that's beside the point. Next question.
Yeah, and the other thing also that we got to remember is there's only one Grey Cup that matters, and that's the 07 Grey Cup. And as far as I know, the Riders are 1-0.
I think I skipped that year.
Yeah. I skipped 2 years a little later on in time, but we don't talk about that.
I was failing pre-algebra in 7th grade during that time, so I really can't speak on that.
It's funny that you mentioned that another Winnipeg first down. It's not that one, but I mean, I've got season tickets. My favorite just nonsensical thing that the Bombers do every time is every time there's a time count violation, we count this arbitrary stat of how many time counts we've caused since 2013. And I mean, this year, I guess, is 10 years. But, that apparently makes the CFL's loudest fans. Does it? I don't know. I guess question, though, is, that's the hot topic between both fan bases all the time, is which stadium gets louder. What do you think, having attended both of them?
There's a difference between loud and, I would say, quality noise. There's a big difference. Like, you could be there, my mom always used to say there's a difference between loud and annoying. Montreal, the horns are annoying, but it works. Whereas in Saskatchewan, it's beautiful to listen to the noise because the stadium is built for it. Whereas IG, it's perfect for drunken loudness. It is dysfunctional function in that stadium, and I loved it. So I can't really say which one is louder or better. They're the same. They're very similar.
So then I guess I got to ask you also, Phil, any other plans on any other CFL road trips yet this season?
Yeah, I will be in BC for the BC Winnipeg game, the 6th, kind of like the battle of who's going to be the top of the West. That one, I'm very excited. I'm doing something with the Lions, collaborating with them for something. I'll be back the 21st. I'm doing something again with the Riders for that regular season finale. If we make the playoffs, I will go to. If we get a home game, I'll be there. Edmonton wants G-Roy Simon wants me to come to Edmonton at some point, so I'm gonna do that. Hopefully, if not this season, next season. But then I'll be at the Grey Cup, and then I'll be at the Vanier Cup the week after that. So I'm making this first tour. Season 1 is I'm getting my miles, brother.
That's quite impressive to cover that many in one season there. So correct me if I'm wrong, was Labor Day Classic your first CFL game in attendance?
It was my first time even in Canada, leaving
Oh,
the country.
wow.
Yes, I went through so much crap to get my passport. I had to go through the emergency situation. I actually was crying in the car. I don't cry about a lot of things because I had hyped up this tour and I didn't want to be like, I'm not coming, because there was that situation where I lost my ticket coming to the Banjo Bowl.
Oh, no.
And luckily I got it resolved, but everybody was excited. I was like, man, it was worth it. So yeah, it's a lot to cover. But it's been amazing, man. I couldn't have chosen a better time to go. LDC and Banjo Bowl.
I like the comment here. We need Coach Phil in the announcer's stand as a guest for a game. A lot of great comments here.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you do not. No, you don't. Because I have no filter, and I probably will get thrown out, or I'll get kicked out of Canada by the Mounties. Just saying.
I mean, you really could probably fill in and take over for Ford or for Suter whenever you'd like. So.
I mean, I could take over for the so-called voice of the Rough Riders, but
Oh yes, please, anytime. Let me know the day.
Can I tell a funny story real quick to the people?
We talked about it. Go for it.
Okay. So let's not BS ourselves. We know who I'm talking about, and I'm gonna say is it okay if I say his name?
Yeah, he's not Voldemort.
I just watched Goblet of Fire a couple days ago, so hush. No, Mike, I never know if it's Michael Ball or Michael Ballsy. Which one is it?
Michael Ball.
Michael Ball.
His nickname is Ballsy.
He ain't got none. Anyway, the devil is a lie. This man has claimed to be the voice of the Rough Riders and all that fun stuff. So when I got there, me and my boy, he was like, man, I just don't like him, blah, blah, blah. I said, and me being me, when I'm in Coach Phil mode, anything is possible. Philip is different. Philip is more, I guess you could say like Vince McMahon. I take calculated risk, pal. Coach Phil, I'm going to run up on you. And so if you hurt one of my people, I'm going to walk up on you and confront you. So after the game, we went over to the Harvard Lounge, and he was doing his little radio show. So I walk in. I'm on demon time. Like, I'm looking for him, and I see him. And you ever look at somebody, you're like, he ain't worth it. Like, it's not worth spending the night in jail over him. And I went over to my boy, and he was like, he's up there. What you going to say to him? So I walked up there, and I got introduced to his co-host, the former player, whatever. We talked for a second, and he saw me. And I don't know if he knows me like that, but I know who he is, and I just stared. And he looked at his phone and went off, whatever, and I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I commented on his tweet about something about the Banjo Bowl being name changed, whatever, and I was like, bro, that's stupid. Like, you got to be the dumbest shock jock I know. You want to be Howard Stern so bad, but I'm gonna be nice.
Yeah, don't worry. It's all through my thought too, as well. I mean,
that
radio station the radio station he was on before I did this thing here, I used to phone in once a day, just randomly talking riders, just because I could. I was sitting in a tractor bored. Now, I don't think I've listened for probably 3 years. I'm sorry.
Now Adam calls me every day. It's great.
I call him. And
now that's a friendship right there.
He doesn't actually. He hardly shows up.
And it's not even like a beef or nothing like that. It's just don't be disrespectful to people. Don't talk reckless. And I'm gonna look right in the camera and say this. And you can clip this. You can say what you want to. I want this to go all over Twitter. You ain't got to be disrespectful to prove your point, bro. Don't disrespect people like that. Don't disrespect women. Don't just call people meatballs. You ain't that guy. You're not built like that, fam. You want to talk football, keep it on the field, but don't sit there and talk trash about other people counterparts that you have in the media. You ain't got to do all that. You short, you balding, you ain't built like that. So be respectful. Anyway, next question.
Well said. We talk about this was your first trip up to Canada to catch the Canadian game live. I know on the YouTube channel we've seen, you've got reactions to XFL, NFL highlights, etc. So taking in all these different leagues, comparing the Canadian game to the American game. What do you like? What don't you like when you're comparing the different game styles?
As far as like American game, obviously living here in America, you keep up with what goes on, but everybody is so following the trend, like RPOs and different things like that, and QB sneaks on fourth down. Like everybody do the exact same thing, and it's nothing creative. Like when one guy does it, everybody got to jump in. I gotta do it. In the CFL, I like the creativeness of the OCs and the DCs, even on special teams. They are creative. If I see Janarian Grant run one more damn punt return, I'm gonna lose it because he's that good. And even Mario Alford, he's incredible. But it's the creativeness, it's the unpredictability of the way a game could go. The fans are outstanding. I did see a couple fights at IG, but other than that, man, there's a night and day difference, and I really love what I see in the CFL, man.
Well, perfect. The only other question that I got here right now, because again, you and me both are Rough Rider fans, and I know what I've got for a thought on the season so far. I got to get your thoughts on the season so far, I guess. And I mean, to me, it seems like it's an absolute roller coaster ride. And 1 week it's right up on the top, and 1 week it's heading right down. What's your thoughts though on the season so far for the Rough Riders?
We've talked about it. Me being a Seahawks fan, I'm so used to that last few weeks where we know we're going to play the Rams the last game of the regular season or the Cardinals. And if we win this game, we're in to the playoffs. I'm so used to that after a while growing up with it. But it's the same thing with the Rough Riders after experiencing last season's 6 straight losses. That frustrated me. And I remember specifically the game where I was like, we're such a balanced team and can't nobody stop us. And it was against BC. We dropped 6 straight, and that hurt. And then this season, it started out. We were, I think we were 2-0 at one point. We got the game against Calgary. We got the game, that last interception where we were all standing on the stage at McMahon. And I'm thinking, yeah, we doing great. Man, we dropped 3 in a row. Then we come back, we win 1. And I'm like, all right, it is a roller coaster, but I think down the line, these next 7 weeks are going to define our direction. But also, if we get hot and we get one home playoff game and we got to go to either BC or Winnipeg, we could knock them off.
And the way I look at it is as well, I mean, if you would have told me 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago that we're going to go 2-1, we're going to beat the Lions, we're going to beat the Bombers at least once in this next 3 games, I would have taken that 100 times out of 100. It's tough to go to IGF and win, no matter which time it is. So overall, I mean, yeah, that game wasn't pretty, and it was. We'll try to ignore that game, but overall, the Rough Riders, I mean, they have been playing better in the last little bit, and It'll be very interesting to see what happens against Edmonton this week, I think. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you credit. 6-6 on the season. I was low on the Riders coming into this year because I wasn't a big believer in Trevor Harris and that the offensive line was going to improve enough. Right. And Trevor Harris looked good early in the season. Unfortunately, went down due to that injury, and he'd been rotating between Mason Fine and Jake Dolegala at quarterback the past couple of weeks. Like you mentioned, Adam, 2-1 in those last 3 games against top teams in the West Division. So, you know what, a 500 season so far, yeah, I'll give the Riders credit. And I'm not sure what their schedule looks like the rest of the stretch here. Let's see, they've got the Elks this week, the Red Blacks, so that should be 2 pretty winnable games. And then, BC, and then it's Hamilton, Calgary, Toronto. So most of their remaining games are against teams currently lower than them or equal with them in the standings. So, right. I think the Riders can make a playoff push here and are probably, obviously, the front runner out west to claim that last playoff spot. Don't know if they can catch the home playoff game. You might not get to make that trip back to Mosaic this year for a playoff game, unfortunately, Coach Phil. But, hey, there's always a possibility that they make that playoff run and get to the Grey Cup.
Anything's possible.
Hey, I did say comeback last week.
Yeah, you kept saying comeback after every single Bomber touchdown as if this was the...
I did come back to Saskatchewan because that game was over.
No comment.
I mean, yeah, pretty well. So
Y'all.
Ryan, what do you? All right, got anything else, or do we want to move on to the storylines real fast?
Yeah, I guess last question is you've watched, been watching CFL regularly. You've gone back and watched some of these old games as well. Do you have a specific favorite CFL moment or game that comes to mind?
I thought about this when we were talking. You sent me the questions. There's two, very specifically at two of them. I would say the 90, I think it was the 96 West final. I think it was Edmonton against Winnipeg, Cal Murphy's last game, when they got blown out 63 to, I think it was 63 to 7. That I'd never seen nothing like that. The only time I seen something like that was when Jacksonville beat down Miami, and it was Dan Marino's last game. That was the most thing I could equate to. I'd say the other one would be the 96 Grey Cup between Toronto and Edmonton. That it's 4 hours on YouTube. If anybody want to watch that, go watch it. It's a fun game. It's in the snow. There's a condensed version, like 40 minutes on CFL.ca. But those probably two of my funnest games to watch. And probably like the 04 East final between Toronto and Montreal. That was a fun one.
Awesome. Yeah. No, exciting. Everybody's got their own. They were there when they saw this. Where were you when you saw this moment? Right.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's got different favorite moments. I know Trey says in the YouTube chat, "Too many men." Grey Cup was his. I'm gonna guess you guys don't agree with that sentiment.
I've already reacted to that. We ain't gonna go back down that road. We good. We good for right now.
And yeah, I was at that game. I don't want to remember walking out of that McMahon Stadium. I do not want to remember that again.
Do you know how many people have messaged me talking about I was on the plane and I was a grown man crying? And I'm like, you were on the really? Like you all were there at this game?
Saskatchewan travels for Grey Cups. Oh, my friend,
they travel for everything. You look at
far and wide for games. I love it. I absolutely love that y'all are that.
But I mean, like it's insane. If the Riders are in a Grey Cup, that whole city will turn green, no matter where it is.
Yeah. I mean, you could watch a World Junior hockey game in Switzerland, and there's probably a Riders fan in their Riders jersey sitting in front row. It seems they pop up everywhere there. So well, if we start looking ahead to this week's games, maybe we'll we'll let you forget the memory of that one for now, and perhaps one of the 4 games this week ends up being a favorite all-time one. We've got 4 games on the schedule: 2 Friday night, 2 Saturday. Friday night doubleheader: Toronto at Montreal, rematch from last week. There, Edmonton's heading to Saskatchewan on Friday night as well. On Saturday, we've got the Bombers heading to Hamilton and Ottawa heading to BC. Who is BC coming off the bye this week? I think they are.
Yeah.
So let's talk major storylines here. Everybody, I guess, go around the circle for a little bit with what your top storyline is. Coach Phil, do you have a major storyline from this week that you're watching?
Well, I'd say the one that I'm very interested in is obviously us playing Edmonton. Trey Ford going up against our defense. I'm a Trey Ford guy. So I want to see what Trey can do against our defense and our secondary going against him. The one game that I'm really interested in the most storyline-wise is Winnipeg against Hamilton. And the reason why, and I mentioned this on Bonfire Sports earlier this evening, I got a bone to pick with Simone Lawrence. I got a bone to pick with him because you are supposed to be the leader of this defense. And you did all this talking when you got that contract about, oh, we're going to be hosting the Grey Cup. We're going to be here, all that. And y'all haven't delivered. And I understand you lost Bo twice. But if you can't back it up, bro, then don't talk. Y'all have done way too much talking. And I expect more out of y'all because I got none but love for Simone. He even got on me because I didn't know how to say his name right. I'm sorry. I said it how I was supposed to say it. How it looked. But anyway, I want to see more out of them. I want to see Hamilton be the defense I know they can be, because offensively, all they got is James Butler right now. I was expecting a bigger season from Tim White. I didn't get that. I was expecting my man Duke to have a great season. He's beefing with the team. Godwin was a surprise. So JB's all they got. So I want to see what they're going to do against Winnipeg. Are they going to be able to just surmise some type of offense to go up against Willie, Jackson, Brandon, all those Big Hill, all of them on defense? But we'll see. We're going to see what happens.
See, my game of the week right now is actually the Ottawa Redblacks and the BC Lions. The reason being is Ottawa has really pinned themselves in a deep hole here. I don't know if they can come back from this already, but this is a must-win game. There's playoffs. It's playoffs or bust every week now for the Ottawa Redblacks. They just have to start winning games to have an opportunity to even try to catch Hamilton. Is Dustin Crum the guy to do it? I mean, he's on, he's off. He's had reasonably good weeks. He's had reasonable success. I think he probably could do something here against the BC Lions. And the BC Lions also, I mean, they were getting into a little bit of a skid here just before they went on the break. I don't know. I'm looking at these teams here, and I say that probably will be a very interesting game out in BC Place on a Saturday night. So, Ryan, which game are you looking at?
I mean, I like some storylines in all of these, but from the ones you guys haven't talked about yet, I think Edmonton, Saskatchewan, the most interesting. And I know, Phil, you talked about it a little bit there about Trey Ford. That's the most interesting to me because when the Elks had that long losing streak to start the year, their two most winnable games in that stretch were against the Riders. They had the first one where they got stopped 3 times at the goal line and couldn't punch it in and lost that one there. Then they had the second one where they lost because of the single point on the kickoff there late in the game. So, they played those games close, and that was a whole different Elks team. Like, this Elks offense has been revitalized ever since Jarius Jackson took over as not head coach, but as offensive coordinator. Yeah, maybe we'll get there eventually. Stupid coach's cap. Jarius Jackson as offensive coordinator and Trey Ford as quarterback, has added so much life to this offense. And so, these were close matchups between those two teams. I feel like it's always a bit of an interesting game when they play each other. And if the Elks have any hope of keeping their playoff hopes alive here, they got to win a game, right? Like, they're 3-10 on the season. I guess team to beat for them right now, Hamilton's at 5-7, so they gotta get at least 3 wins currently to get back into a playoff spot, and you're kind of running out of time late in the season there. So I think that's my game of the week here as well. Any other major storylines, either on the other side of some of these matchups we've talked about, or in, I guess, the one game we haven't talked about from either of you?
The only other one that I've got here right now is the Saskatchewan-Edmonton game. I want to see that secondary do something this week. I mean, if you watched Williams last week with the Rough Riders, and even Nick Marshall, unfortunately, and a few of the other guys, that secondary got burned. And I mean, it got burned bad. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of a comeback game they have, as well as also it'll be very interesting to see what Pete Robertson does after coming back off of that suspension. Is he going to be up and getting in guys? He's a physical guy. He likes to be up in guys' faces. Maybe not as close as he got to Zach Collaros, but he does like going and talking and working and kind of doing that sort of game as well. Is he going to be a little bit off of that game a little bit because of the suspension? I sure hope not. But it'll be very interesting to see what Robertson does this week, and also how Nick Marshall, and again, I think it was I think his name was Williams in the Riders that I was watching, to see how they do coming back off of that bad game against the Bombers.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. I think that's something that we were missing was the energy. I think the energy that Pete gave until the headbutt was crucial to us. I think there's a difference between good energy and negative energy, and it was a dumb decision. Things happen, live and learn. But the other game that I think I'm really interested in seeing is Toronto and Montreal. I really like to see that rematch from the East Final. I like what they did earlier in the season. That was a banger of a game that they had in Montreal. I just think with Montreal, it's so weird offensively because you got Austin Mack, you got William Stanback, you got Cody Fajardo, you got other weapons. But can Jason Moss get out the way and let Anthony Calvillo call the entire game at some point? There's a difference. I've mentioned it before. I'll say it again. There's a difference in the play calling when Anthony does it. As far as also their defense, they picked up Darnell Sankey. So that box is filled. And my guy, Reggie Stubblefield, is going to have a baller of a game. Sean's going to do his thing. They got past, present, and future on this defense. Every level from the front line, the backers, because he's a tackle machine, and then you got Reggie, who could be the future. So I'm gonna talk my mess when it comes to Reggie because I love Reggie. But yeah, that's what and Toronto. We got to remember also with Toronto, these are the last few games of Andrew Harris's career. So we got to like give him his flowers for what he's done for the league and also just how he represented himself and also the dominance that he's had. He might win, what is it, 4 in a row? Four technically now? It'll be 4 if they win it again this year.
Yeah.
I ain't seen nothing like that since let me say it correctly, the Edmonton blank run they had. So we got to give it props to that one. So that's what I'm looking at storyline wise. These are the last few games of Andrew Harrison. I love Andrew. He's passing the baton to AJ. We're going to see.
Yeah, I thought Andrew Harris was crazy coming back for one more season after 3 straight Grey Cups. Are you really how can you top that? Well, he might top it with a 4th this year, the way the Argos are playing so far.
Yeah.
On that note, the big storyline there for me, we're in week 15 of the season, and if the Argos win this game, they clinch first place in the East Division. Nobody can catch them, which means the final 6 weeks of the season mean absolutely nothing for them besides practice for the playoffs. So, if the Argos can go out and win this one, they got no bye weeks left, but basically every game is a bye week. You can rotate guys in and out. You can rest them. Does Andrew Harris get a couple of games, more opportunities down the stretch to, give AJ Ouellette fresh legs for the playoffs? You have to wonder. I think it's 2 weeks from now. Harris makes his first return and first and final return to Winnipeg because he didn't get to last season in Argos uniform. Do they give him more of a chance in that one? I don't think the coaches go and play that kind of game where it's like, okay, well, this is this guy's last game here, so I'm going to give him the opportunity. Well, the Argos win this week. Why not, right? You've got nothing to play for. Unless it's to send Winnipeg a message of, yeah, we'll see you in the finals type of thing. You better watch out potentially. A lot of football to be played before we get to those two teams facing in the finals for sure. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I saw the eye rolls there.
No. I roll my eyes because I hear all these idiots and pundits and media people talking about this is a statement. This is the pre-matchup before the Grey Cup or the Super Bowl. Man, them players ain't thinking about. We don't talk about that. I don't know where these key hot takes and words. This is the game where we're looking at the precursor for the championship, and they want to do it. They want to make a statement to them like, we'll see. Man, we don't talk about that. It's another game. We gonna whoop your ass. You gonna try and whoop our ass. We'll see. If we see you down the line, we see you down the line. So I just hate when people say that stuff.
Yeah,
not you, bro. Not you. It's just I know some people are gonna sit here and say, well, this is the statement. This is what Toronto wanted to do. Let Andrew rest. Let AJ rest. Like, come on. We're gonna see y'all.
Yeah, and I fully agree with that sentiment as well, where it's like the bulletin board material for the players that it's always talked about. We
don't have bulletin boards in locker rooms no more. We got who is the idiot sitting here saying this is bulletin board? This ain't the 2000s where you actually have bulletin boards. We tweet it, or exit, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, every team is 0-0 starting a week. They don't care who it is the next week. They just are waiting to play the next. They want to play that team that they're lined up against right now, and that's it.
Not everybody is Michael Jordan where I took that personal. Not everybody takes every damn thing personal. Just go play the game. Like, come on. Yeah. I'm off my soapbox now. I'm hungry.
The only other thing, I guess, in that Toronto-Montreal game to keep in mind as well is Austin Mack. I mean, he's coming back off of that mini suspension. He technically had a whole game off to think about his little punch to the head. what do you guys? First of all, I know I didn't get your thoughts on this, Phil, because I wanted to see because of the Pete Robertson incident and the Austin Mack incident. What was your thoughts? Go.
Well, after 15,000 views of that tweet, I think everybody knows what I think about Pete. But I think with Pete, both of them guys made it was knucklehead decisions. And when emotions are high, logic is low, like I always say. It happens, man. And people, you can tell the difference between people that have played actual sports and people that stayed at home and did play with doilies. You feel me? Like, we're human. We make mistakes as coaches, players, people in organizations. You have to remember that it happens. But for people to say label him a dirty player and say, oh, he's just like Garrett Marino, I almost said a bad word. Ain't nobody as bad as Garrett Marino. Garrett Marino is the worst form of football player I've ever seen in my life. For real. So Pete Robertson is not that. Pete's a good dude. He apologized. He held himself accountable. We can move on from it. Now, it did affect us, I think, going into the Banjo Bowl, but it was what it was. Austin Mack, on the other hand, man, it's a scrum. Shit happens. Let it go. It's what it is.
So you're telling me that the Winnipeg fan that wanted to see 7 games on Pete Robertson.
Oh, they over dramatic. No. That scrum that we had before with them when Andrew Harris was ripping people's helmets off and Nick Dempsey, y'all, I love this about Blue Bomber fans. Y'all never, ever, ever want to talk about what you do, but when everybody else do it, y'all are the first ones to sit there and say he should be suspended for 7 games the rest of the season to make it beneficial for y'all. I see what y'all be doing.
Football fans in general, y'all want to hear that some way or another.
And that's why I say there's watching football and watching football. There's a big difference.
And remember last week when I ranted on the Bomber fans and the Bomber, even the Bomber media and the Bomber players and coaches for crying for a suspension.
He was going to get suspended regardless.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Adam, I'm just annoyed you had to bring up this Austin Mack thing. You really had to rub it in after you beat me in the fantasy matchup because he was my captain this week and got that 0 points.
I mean, let's face it, I had him too, so.
Not as the captain, though. But...
No, fair, but I mean.
It's okay. We'll talk later on in the show about that. Only other storyline, last one here for me that I'm watching this week on the Winnipeg side actually is this team play a good game on the road because I don't know if they actually have this year. The last couple of home games have gone really well, but last road game, they lost an OT in Saskatchewan. Before that, a low-scoring win over Calgary. That was kind of ugly. Game before that was the dismal start against the Elks that they came back and won to their credit, but that one was a gong show all the way across the board. The overtime loss in Ottawa before that, low-scoring win over Montreal, and then, the one in Saskatchewan earlier in the year, that was a high-scoring affair all the way around. So, it seems like the team has not played its best game. Like, is this another trap game against the team with the Ticats coming off of this big win? You would think, the talent level between the teams and the way they've been playing this year, that it's going to be a big Bombers win, perhaps. I'm not so sure, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we get to our betting picks in the show. Any more storylines here? If not, or I guess, anything else ahead this week you guys want to talk about?
I mean, I just wanted to mention that the Bombers are now 1-2 against third-string quarterbacks this year. Just thought I'd bring it up there, and to play in Hamilton this week.
We have a great history of not doing great against quarterbacks that should not do great against us.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, it happens a lot. If no more storylines, we're going to get into our fantasy players to watch and stuff in a little bit here. But Coach Phil, I know you got to run. You've had a busy day. You got stuff to do yet tonight. First of all, thanks for taking the time to join us in your busy schedule. This has been a blast. We've had a lot of fun. If you've been seeing the chat comments here, I'm not sure if you can see them on your side. They've been flowing all night. Lots of love for Coach Phil here from people who follow you. And I got to say, You might be the biggest CFL celebrity on Twitter or X or whatever. Every time I scroll, somebody's talking about Coach Phil over there, and I see stuff going on. So yeah, excited to get a chance to meet you and chat with you.
Hey, I'm like I tell everybody, man, I'm just, all jokes aside, I'm just a brother that's pretty good at what he's doing right now, man. There are some like guys like you and everybody else, and I'm not on y'all level. I will humbly say that. I'm not a celebrity, I'm not a star. I'm grateful for y'all. I'm grateful for everybody else in CFL family, and that I don't really buy into all that. I appreciate it. It's nice, but I don't. Nah, man. I'm just a normal guy, man.
Well, where can people find everything you've got? Plug whatever you want here before we let you go. Where can people find you doing normal guy stuff?
Ain't nothing normal about me though. Sometimes, no. Obviously Instagram, Coach Phil 425, X, Twitter, whatever Elon's calling it now. Coach Phil Reacts. What else? I got a Discord. Go mess with that, I guess. And mainly I just do Twitter, and I got TikTok. I kind of post on there, Coach Phil 425. But mainly I'm like IG and Twitter. So follow me on there and subscribe to my channel. That's the most, I almost forgot that. The most important part of it, my YouTube. Subscribe to my channel, Coach Phil Reacts 425. Let's keep growing. And thank you guys so much for having me. I love what you guys do. And we got to do this again sometime.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and hopefully we can see you there on October 21st and see another Rough Rider win together, I guess, maybe this time.
We gonna get it done. Oh, and one more thing before I go. I just would like to say this publicly as I shimmy real quick. Michael Ball, anywhere, anytime, anyhow, you want to have a debate, you want to go back and forth, you ain't met nobody like me because I ain't from Canada. I'm from the States. And if you want to go to the abyss with me, come to the abyss with me. Thank y'all.
And he's out. He's gone. Great way to end it off. Can't top that. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And of course, you're invited back anytime you want. Just let us know, and we'll get you back in here. But we'll let you go here for this evening off to get to your other things. Oh, Adam's got one more thing.
Yeah. One more quick thing. What are your picks this week? Who you got in the 4 games?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I got Toronto winning, but it's Montreal's game to lose because Montreal has an incredible chance to beat Toronto because they put up that one the last time they played each other. Great game they had. That was early season game of the year right there. Edmonton, Saskatchewan, you keep Trey in the pocket. You got a chance to win. We're going to do our thing. I ain't worried about nothing with us. I said that on Saturday. Bit me in the ass. Winnipeg, Hamilton. I got Winnipeg winning, but by a smidge. Barely. It's going to come down to the wire. If Winnipeg has the ball near the end, they're going to run the clock out. If Hamilton has a chance, they're going to feed JB. Ottawa, BC is actually a sleeper game, but pretty fun. So I'm going to go with BC. BC for the win, but I love the Red Blacks too, man. Bob Dice is my guy.
Right on. We'll see how those picks work out. Probably better than any of ours, given our track records this season. Well, I should speak for myself. Adam's done a good job. I've done terrible. We'll see.
Just don't ask me about fantasy.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that right away, Adam. So I hope you're ready for that. But Coach Phil, thanks again for your time this evening. Round of applause, everybody. I don't want to edit it, so I'll just clap into the microphone. There we go. Round of applause for Coach Phil, and thanks for stopping by, and have a good rest of your day.
All right, y'all. Take care. Be safe out there.
All right. Have a good one. Take care. All right. That was Coach Phil joining us to chat all about CFL fandom, content creation, and experiences going to the CFL games this year. Adam, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It was fun. I mean, I don't know how much we're going to be allowed to share this in close to the Regina media, but, I think we'll be all good.
Yeah, no, that was great. Everything about that was a fun time.
It was awesome, yeah.
Well, let's get on to the rest of the show here, just you and I for the rest of it. Again, we kind of went game by game, or we're not doing the game by game approach this time around. So we talked about the storylines already for all of them. So let's get into some fantasy players to watch this week. And I figure we'll go position by position. So we'll start off with the quarterbacks here. Seems like a logical place to start. I've got 3 names on the list this week for you, and they're all decently priced. Vernon Adams Jr. is the biggest one and probably the one I'm going to lock in without question. 20.1 fantasy point average on the year, 25.1 in his last 3 games. He's only had 1 game under 15 points on the season, which is the game he got injured. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, no doubt about it. Oh, and he also faces the Ottawa terrible pass defense, who give up 21.7 fantasy points to quarterbacks. Lock Vernon Adams Jr. in. Fingers crossed. Maybe I shouldn't, so I don't ruin it for the rest of you. Make him your captain. No doubt about it with VA this week. If you're not going that direction, I also do like Zach Collaros at $14,500. He is coming off a season best 33.9 point performance. And has 17 plus points in 9 of his 12 games so far this season. Pretty safe bet. Put up bundles of touchdowns each week. 11 touchdowns in his last 3 games. Ticats give up second most in the league to quarterbacks at 18.5 points per game. And Collaros did torch the Ticats in week 1. And I think he can deliver another big week here. Also, I've got Trey Ford on the list. I mean, how can you not at $10,000? He has the highest average fantasy points per game among all quarterbacks in the CFL with 21.9. Also, here's a crazy stat for you. He has the second highest rushing average in the CFL. Quarterbacks, running backs, all included. 80.2 rushing yards per game for Trey Ford, which only trails Brady Oliveira. It's an absolutely insane average. It gives you it makes him a major fantasy threat every week, even though he really hasn't established himself as a passer much. Plus, you're going to like this one, Adam. You know how well Elks running quarterbacks do against the Riders defense. See, Taylor Cornelius having his few good games against them. Let's see what Trey Ford can do against that Riders defense. Quarterbacks, what are the options you're considering this week?
I'm looking at Jake Dolegala. The only reason that is because he's fairly reasonable, $8,000. I'm considering that because I think he may have a pretty good game and a bounce back game against the Edmonton Elks. If there's one piece that the Elks are maybe a little bit weaker on, and I'd say it just a smidge weaker, is probably in their secondary. I really don't know what it is, but Furifoy and Gainey just don't scare me like they used to. So that could be one thing. And the other reason I'm not, and again, Trey Ford is another guy I was looking at for a little bit. Trey Ford, I don't like because of the fact that Pete Robertson's coming back this week. And I think the Riders are just going to pin their ears back and try to grab him in the backfield, as Trey Ford has had a very, very poor passer rating, and making passes, his yardage, I don't think, has been up there with all the other quarterbacks in the league. So that being said, I'm probably going to go with Vernon Adams because he's probably the surest pick that we've got. And you know what? He's not the max priced. So, yeah, I'm probably going to pick VA in the end. But definitely thinking of the other 2 as well.
All right, let's talk running back options for this week. I've got quite a few on the list, so I'll give you a couple, and then I'll turn it over to Adam, and then I'll finish off the list here. Do I even need to explain why Brady Oliveira is on the list at $13,300? Like, do I? Well, I will. He's the best running back in the CFL. He's the guaranteed lock for most outstanding Canadian, and I don't even think there's an argument, to be made against it. He averages 88 rushing yards a game this year and a wild 120.3 in his last 3. He's on pace for over 1,500 yards, one of the best Canadian rushing seasons of all time. Add in his receiving totals, add in his touchdown consistency, and he's got 20-plus fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. The Ticats also give up the 3rd most to running backs with 14 points per game there as well. I would strongly consider making him a captain choice this week. I also like Kevin Brown at $11,000. Conveniently, the change to Jarius Jackson at offensive coordinator and Trey Ford's rushing ability have also opened things up for Kevin Brown the past 5 games. He's averaged 97.4 rushing yards in that time. So a really strong stretch of games here for him. Downside is he doesn't get many check down passes because Ford's just going to take off and run in those situations himself. But I think the solid volume of carries, he has the ability to break out those long runs as well, which I think can bring a good fantasy potential there. And one more name I will give you before I hand it over to Adam is AJ Ouellette at $12,300. Ask and ye shall receive. I mentioned last week how he brings a solid floor, but hadn't scored a rushing touchdown since week number 4. And sure enough, boom, he rattled off 2 against the Alouettes last week, who he faces again in this game. But what I like the most is not the 2 touchdowns, it's the 19 carries he got. He's got an average of 14.5 in his last 4 games. And it's a rematch against the Owls. They're pretty good at shutting down the pass, but not the run. So I expect a lot more of the same there. Adam, what are you looking at as your running back options for the week?
Well, the first one I'm going to look at is Brady Oliveira. I mean, any questions, or should I start explaining why I want to pick a Winnipeg Blue Bomber running back? I mean, it sucks that I have to, but you know what? He's playing the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Tiger Cats give up a lot of running yards, and it's Brady Oliveira. This game could be a running just spectacle, in all honesty. I mean, he might get 100 yards before halftime, for all we know. I mean, he almost did it last week against, the other team that they played, but nevertheless. Also, I'm looking at Deontay Williams on the Ottawa Redblacks sideline. $8,000, a little bit more reasonable of a pick. The reason is he's been having some pretty good games as of late. He had a good one against the Edmonton Elks. He's had now a good one against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I don't know if the BC Lions are a team to really run against, but I don't know. I think that maybe there's something there. The run defense hasn't been the best lately of the BC Lions. So, yeah, I think I'm going to pick Deontay Williams, and definitely, no question of a doubt, if there's ever a lock on my page, this will be the first time I probably say it's a lock. Brady Oliveira ain't going off my page this week.
Yeah, I think he's pretty easy to lock in there. I was thinking Devontae Williams as well. I was close to putting him on the list, but I'm going to go at the same price of $9,000 for a different option here. And I think I'm going to add Jamal Morrow to the list. Morrow this year, he hasn't been flashy with his rushing average, but he's gotten the volume of carries here this season, a lot more than he has in the past. 10 plus carries in every game but one, besides the last 2 matchups against Winnipeg. And Winnipeg's normally pretty good at shutting running backs down. So, Jamal Morrow's gotten the volume of carries. We know he can get a high volume of passes going his way at times. And I think, after last week's struggles, maybe Drake Dolegala should be looking at dumping some of those off to Morrow a little more often. And also, it's just the big matchup against the Elks, who give up 17.2 points per game to starting running backs. It's the best running back matchup to pick against. And Morrow still, I think, has the numbers that it could be worth it. Also, on that note, if you're going to pick Riders running backs against this Elks matchup, a deep sleeper for me this week is Thomas Bertrand Houdon, the backup running back for the Riders at $2,500. The top lineup of the week last week put up over 200 fantasy points. Happened to have this guy in their lineup, and he delivered. I think it was just 7 fantasy points, but at $2,500, that's all you need. 5 carries for 41 yards, 2 catches for 12 for him last week. I wonder if the Riders start getting him a little more involved in that offense as well, especially if they have a big rushing day against the Elks here. And the last name I'll mention, and boy, do I have a lot of running backs on the list this week, which scares me a bit because it's like, if I think every running back is good, which one's the best? It's hard to pick from there. But Walter Fletcher, $4,600. Check the depth chart, but if he's listed high on it, I think it's a medium risk, high reward play. In 2 of the last 3 games he's played, he's scored over 10 points, due in large part to his pass catching ability. Only 5 carries last week, but 5 receptions for 52 yards. And I'd love to see them keep using him in this role. We talk a lot about the difference in the NFL game, how they have that passing down back. I wonder if Walter Fletcher can become that for this Alouettes team and could be worth a saving there. That's where we're at for running backs. Let's get into wide receivers. Again, number of different names at wide receiver here as well. Adam, give me one name at wide receiver that you're looking at first, and then I'll give a couple and we'll ping pong back and forth.
Well, I'm going to go with one that's really, really, really gone cheap. And they tried to get him in effect last week a little bit against the Bombers. It didn't work so well. But I think this week he has an opportunity to probably definitely capitalize. It's Keon Schaefer-Baker. I mean, $6,000, very cheap option. He's got to have one of those big blowout games. He's got to. And you know what? It's the Edmonton Elks. It's an opportunity here for him to shine. I think if there was ever a game where Keon Schaefer-Baker could have a big blowout, this could be the one here. So, yeah, give me Schaefer-Baker.
Yeah, I've got Schaefer-Baker on the list as well at $6,000. Right slot back, Elks give up 10.1 points per game to it, the second worst in the CFL. And he's half the price of the other wide receivers on the Riders. I agree with you. Schaefer-Baker, I mean, Dolan Gala didn't miss him when he was wide open in the end zone on that first drive last week for the Riders. I have to wonder what could have been if they got that early momentum there. And they tried to go back to him a couple times, just couldn't hit the target. So I think he's the most talented wide receiver on the team, and he's half the price of a Tevin Jones or a Sean Bain. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out for Schaefer-Baker there. Let me give you some of my, I'll start with two of my biggest names at receiver here. Again, one I'm ready to lock into the lineup, and I'm not even going to question it. Keon Hatcher at $12,000. He has the highest average among all wide receivers in basically every statistical category. Leads the way in fantasy points, targets, catches, receiving yards, and he's like 5th in touchdown average. You can't ask for much more from that. And this week you get the added bonus of an absolutely glorious positional matchup. Left slot back against Ottawa is the second most advantageous receiver positional matchup in the league. They give up 15.8 points per game to the position. You stack Keon Hatcher with VA, you make one of them your captain, and you're probably honestly close to hitting 100 points on the week. At least 50. I think you hit there between those guys, maybe 70. And the other one I like, Tim White at $11,500. Tim White is back to what we expected he would be. Last week, 12 targets, 7 catches, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 38.8 fantasy points, and a fantasy matchup victory for one team, Adam, over myself. Tim White was the reason you beat me this week, man. And he's playing good ball lately. 3 of his last 4 games, he's got 7+ catches and 100+ receiving yards. He's 5th in the league in receiving yards, despite his really slow start to the season. Tough match against the Bombers. They shut down left slot back, but none of the other matchups are good against the Bombers either. So that shouldn't really deter them from throwing things Tim White's way. I like that play this week. Those are kind of my 2 of my top receivers I want in my lineup if I can afford them. Give me another name on your end here, Adam.
Yeah, on my end, I've got actually, again, I mean, I'm probably going to get tarred, feathered, and sent east across the border into Manitoba, but I'm picking another Winnipeg Blue Bomber, actually. I am looking at Dalton Schoen. He's always consistent. He gets you a lot of points. Yes, he's $14,000. I get it. He's expensive. But they're playing a Hamilton team that really hasn't shown a whole lot in their secondary this year. And I really like the matchup against him right now. So that's one I'm looking at. And I'll give you even the other one that I am thinking about right now. Well, the other receiver I had was Keon Hatcher. I mean, that one there is just about as much of a lock as Brady Oliveira, but not quite. Just mainly because, it's not Brady Oliveira. Other than that, the other receiver that I'm really considering in here is Nick Dembski. I think he's had some pretty good games against the Ticats as well. And you know what? He's got to get going sometime here. The only problem I got with Winnipeg players, again, you could take Dembski, you could take Lawler, you could take Dalton Schoen, you could take Drew Wolodarski, although I think he's injured right now. So maybe Rasheed Bailey even has some big games once in a while for him. That's the problem with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers receivers. you don't know which one to take. Uh, Unless you can go and somehow sneak out Mike O'Shea's playbook and see what exactly he's calling for that week, or Buck Pierce's playbook. Otherwise, yeah, you don't know who's going to get the football at any time. So uh, I'm going to go right now. I'm thinking Dalton Schoen. That may change just because I don't know which bomber to take.
Yeah, that's my dilemma as well, right? Kenny Lawler's the one I have thrown on the list here for me, just because he's got the price of 10,000. You can't really bank on target share with the Bombers. You're really just banking on, I can't believe I'm saying this, touchdown share and big play share, which is a scary thing to bank on. But if you want to stack them with Zach Collaros, if you want to, get a piece of that Bombers offense, and if they're going to play like they did this past week, it really doesn't matter which one you pick. I mean, it does to some extent, because you could have picked Mick Dembski and only gotten the one catch, while Dalton Schoen got 3 touchdowns. But it's hard to bank either way on them. So I feel iffy on it, but I like putting Lawler in there for a piece of that Bombers offense. He's scored a touchdown in 5 of his 7 games on the year, and he still does average 6.4 targets per game. So he still gets those opportunities, even if the touchdown doesn't show up in this one. A couple more higher priced options here that I'm looking at, and then we'll get into cheaper value plays also. And we'll see, Adam, if you have any other cheap value plays for us there as well. Do I want to put him on the list? I'll throw Eugene Lewis in here at $10,000. He's really begun establishing himself back as what we thought he'd be for the Elks this year. 8 targets and 5 catches in each of his last 2 games. 14.9 fantasy points in his last average in his last 3. And it's kind of been an underutilized passing game from the Elks. So if that's his floor based on them not passing a ton, we know what his ceiling can be. So I think it's a big boomer bust play. Despite the tough matchup against the Riders, Eugene Lewis getting more involved in that one there. I'm also going to play the matchup game here and throw Lucky Whitehead out there. I mean, bank on Vernon Adams throwing for over 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns against the Ottawa Red Blacks. So left wideout does score the most in the league at 12.1 points. Against Ottawa, it's best left wideout matchup in the CFL. And Lucky Whitehead, he's had a disappointing year at time, quite a bit so far this season. But he comes in cheap at $7,500, and he's still in a lot of games, getting 6, 7, 8 targets a game on the season. So I think it's a good matchup, and maybe this is one of his breakout games here for Lucky Whitehead. I do see a question in the chat about Stephen Dunbar. I believe he was placed on the 6-game injured list this week, so he will be out for a little while there.
Although that does give an opportunity for one more Edmonton receiver possibly to get going. And I don't know, I was liking to say Dylan Mitchell because he was on my team at one time and he was a pretty good guy. I thought he was pretty good. But you know what? Kyron Moore's actually had a sneaky good season so far this year. So he may be a decent value pick if you're kind of looking for a guy to get you some of those touchdowns. And hey, revenge game against the Riders. Maybe means something. Apparently it doesn't if you're listening to Coach Phil.
Yeah, revenge games mean nothing, if I learned one thing today. Follow-up question here. So more targets for Eugene Lewis? I don't think so, really, because Dunbar in his last 3 games has only gotten like 2 to 4 targets a game. So maybe you get 1 or 2 more for Lewis. But I don't think that's enough to really tip the scales for me. It's more so tipping the scales of, Eugene Lewis is just that good and maybe took some time to get going again after injury, but the connection's going to continue to grow. Oh boy, Adam, I still got, 1, 2, 3, 4 more wide receiver names for you this week. I'm trying to go with more options at different price levels. Full disclosure, when I mention these players on the podcast, this is the player pool I'm picking from for the week. Unless depth charts change a little bit and, injuries happen and the new guy gets in there, that's a good value play. Whatever I mentioned on the show on Wednesday night, I'm picking from that pool when it comes to setting my lineup for the week. So I want to make sure to include a range of options at different prices here. that I think could be good plays depending how you set your budget. Tyler Snead, $6,000. Last week, only 5 points on the week for him. It was a disappointment, but the Owls' whole offense was thrown off when Austin Mack got thrown out because Mack demands just so much extra attention from the defense. Him back this week, I think I'm willing to go back to the well with Tyler Snead and see if my good old tried and true left slot back against the Argos, best matchup of any wide receiver position in the league, can deliver as it normally does. But check the depth chart because the injury report points out that Kion Julian Grant might be back in the lineup this week for the Alouettes off the injured list, which could take a solid target share back as well. So we'll see. We'll see how that affects things and where guys line up and whether Greg Ellingson is back as well. I don't think so. Not that I saw, but we'll wait for the depth chart on that one. Do you have any more names to throw out here to interject before I list the last couple, Adam?
No, not overly. I mean, the one that we've been all running on kind of for the last little bit has been Jarrett Stearns for the Rough Riders. I mean, he's $5,500. He's not bad, but I don't see the points or the value out of him anymore. I mean, they seem to be aiming for Schaefer Baker more. They still go to Kevin Jones a lot. They go to Samuel Ellis a lot. It seems like he's just the odd man out right now. Unfortunately, I think he's a really good player, Jarrett Stearns, but it just doesn't seem like he's getting the looks. So maybe a player to avoid. I was going to bring that one up because I know that he's very cheap and he's on the starting lineup for the Riders. But yeah, just maybe keep away from him just because of the maybe the lack of targets going to Jarrett Stearns.
That was my thoughts there as well. I'll talk about a former Rider, though, and that's Shaq Evans with the Ottawa Redblacks at $5,600. At that price, you need 8.4 fantasy points to get your value, and in 4 of his last 5 games, he's hit between 7.1 and 8.4. Not really an exciting fantasy total yet from him, but he's serviceable. He's consistent for the price. He also has Ottawa's best positional matchup at wide receiver against the Lions. They give up 11.4 to that spot, third worst in the league. So maybe that favorable matchup garners just a couple of extra looks from Dustin Crum to make it extra worth it. And then we get into the real bargain bin here, the low under $3,000 prices. I've got 2 of them. Again, check your depth charts because that could affect it. But Omar Bayless of the Hamilton Tiger Cats at $2,800. Duke Williams was out last week. I expect Duke Williams to probably be out again and him to get another start. Last week in his first start, 4 catches on 4 targets for 53 yards. Starting receiver at this price is almost always worth a look if you need an extreme value play to stack your lineup elsewhere. So I like Bayless as an option there potentially. But the one I like the most is going to be Tommy Neild at $2,500. Who had Tommy Neild as the Argos leading receiver last week? Anyone? Put your hand up.
That way we can determine liars.
Yeah. 6 catches on 7 targets for 84 yards as the backup for him last week, and that's at the bare minimum price. He was the best value play of the week if anybody had the guts to put him in their lineup then. Well, I might consider putting him in the lineup now. Curly Gittins Jr. is out this week. Cam Phillips is questionable, which should keep him in line for an opportunity to start. The Argos offense is explosive. Why not give it a shot and see if he can deliver again for the price? That's where we're at wide receiver. Then we go to my least favorite part, which is picking a defense. And honestly, I have nothing written in here for this because I don't love any of the defensive options. None of them are going to deliver you the value. That's what we've learned over the course of the season is the defenses probably aren't going to give you the value. And if you're just looking to spend dirt cheap on it, I have to wonder, which one is the best play? Like you've got the Riders against Edmonton, but Trey Ford's done pretty good with ball security. Vice versa, Edmonton against the Riders. I mean, Jake Dolgala doesn't throw interceptions there either. Montreal faces Toronto. They don't get sacked. Like these are, it's Ottawa against BC. Like these are the low-priced options here. Adam, do you have a defense you're favoring here at all, or are you just going dirt cheap?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the absolute cheapest defense I can because that's the way to play defense. Honestly, there is nothing I like in this. The Toronto defense is too much. I don't see the Alouettes throwing a whole lot of stuff around. Uh, I mean, that's probably your best bet if you're actually wanting to pick a defense for points, I think. Uh, or the BC defense. You might get a couple out of Crum. I don't know if you will or not, though. I really don't see it either. Uh, I mean, the Ottawa defense is usually pretty terrible at blocking up for offensive for wide receivers. So you're going to get burned if you pick them. You might be in a negative, like I had last week against the Montreal Alouettes defense. I think I had a -4. Yeah, honestly, I probably will take the Riders defense. I think they maybe have the best opportunity to maybe get a couple, and I think that they're going to be annoyed because of last week. So that's the only reason. So yeah, cheapest defense.
Yeah, and Trey Ford did throw 2 picks last week, I believe. So I think there's room for that there. Nick Marshall will probably jump a play and either get burned for a touchdown or take it back for a pick 6. If you have the money, don't save the money for a defense. But you mentioned BC against Ottawa, good matchup there to get a couple of sacks in there. Maybe Winnipeg against Hamilton if they're able to force a couple of key turnovers there. Vice versa, Hamilton against Winnipeg. I mean, Zach Collaros has thrown an interception in 7 straight games, I think it is. Before this last week. This last week, he barely missed a pass. They all went to the end zone over and over and over and over again in the first half. Good times, right? Yeah, I enjoyed it. Great times.
The radio was off after 1 minute into the first quarter. I mean, it was bad.
It was great. It was good. But yeah, moral of the story: don't consider this, an endorsement of any of the defenses. Pick whatever you feel is with your gut is the best within whatever money you have left over.
And if you have a fantasy commissioner that insists that we have to play a defense, switch commissioners.
Well, that's the league site makes you. You have to. So
I guess that's true.
Yeah, there's no option this year. All right, those are our fantasy players to watch for this game. Adam, let's take a look at our betting picks for this week. Trey sent in the odds for us. He also sent in his picks. We start at the first game of the week, which is the Argos visiting the Montreal Alouettes. Argos are at -6.5. The over/under is at 53 points on this game. Oh boy, do you want to go first on this one?
No, I was just taking a look here. That I got a thing from 3 Down Nation saying that Philip Blake is now practicing with the Rough Riders, so that'd be pretty sweet. Nevertheless, on this game here, I'm gonna take the Argonauts to win this one. But that is a very, very weird spread, and I think that it's very tough to beat teams twice in a row and dominate them twice in a row. Give me the Alouettes to cover this, but Argos are going to win it. And I'm going to go with the over on this one. I don't know. I think it's going to be a shootout in Montreal. And I was going to tell Coach Phil to go and check out the old Toronto versus Montreal game in which the Rouge ended up winning a game. I was going to tell him that. I forgot to. But if he's listening afterwards, yeah, check out that game. That's a pretty fun one.
You're taking Montreal to cover, and you're taking the over. That's what you said, just to confirm there as well. I'm also taking the over. It scares me that it's at 53 because that's a really high number. But I'll take it because the Argos put up points in bunches, and their passing defense also isn't the greatest. But I'm going to take the Argos to cover the 6.5 points here because Montreal just doesn't know how to play against teams ahead of it in the standings. They've been blown out, I think, in almost every one of those games. They're not blown out. If not blown out, they've at least given up high point totals in their last 3 games, 39 points, 34, 47. This is a team we were talking about averaging 15 points against per game before that this season. So I'm comfortable taking the Argos to lock up the division here in week number 15. Can't remember if I said it before, but Trey is also taking the Argos and the over. So me and Trey agree on that game. Next game is the Edmonton Elks visiting the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The Riders come in at 2.5-point favorites at home. So does that mean the Elks are actually the favorite, technically by half a point? If I'm understanding things correctly, I don't know. It's a close line either way. Over under is at 46.5 on this game. Oh boy. I think I'm gonna take the Elks. They came so close early in the season a couple of times in these matchups, and we're looking at couple of differences here. We're looking at Trey Ford on one side. We're looking at, I think in those earlier matchups it was Trevor Harris, maybe it was Mason Fine in there as well. Now it's Jake Dolagala on the other side of the matchup. I will take the Elks to win this one, I think. And yeah, I'm going to take the under because the other two games between these teams were low scoring. I'm going to agree. Trey agrees with me. We're both going to go Edmonton under.
Well, you guys are fools, but nevertheless, the Riders, let's face it, it's something, and I know Phil just said in his thing that nobody matters about the last game or the game before or whatever, or the game after. They just care about the game now. In this case here, the Rough Riders, I think, are motivated. They just got blown right out of the water by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They want to show that they're still a relevant team in the West. I know that they didn't beat the Elks by much in the last two games. Essentially, it was a Sims weird play that essentially cost them one, and a third and goal that cost them the other. That being said, the Riders are one of these teams that seem like if they play a very good game, they can play an excellent game. And when they don't play good, they are terrible. So the Elks are moving up, and I'll give them that. They're better than they were. They lost Steven Dunbar, which is a big piece for them. Now I'm going to go with the Riders. I think that they win this one here, just because again they're at home. They need the win. They need to prove themselves again, so nobody starts questioning them. And I'm going to go with the under on this game too, though. Should be a good defensive battle. Serezna on the defensive side of the Elks, and I think you're right. It's going to be what Pete Robertson can do, and the rest of the defensive line can do to contain Trey Ford. Make sure he doesn't run out of the corners.
Now we get to the matchup I'm most excited to get takes on here. It's Winnipeg at Hamilton. The Bombers come in at 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is at 47.5. Trey is taking the Bombers to cover and is taking the over on this one. Adam, what are you taking?
I'm going to take the Bombers. I'm going to take the under, though, because they just seems like a little bit high, 47.5. Unless the Bombers somehow can pull off 50 again. I have a funny feeling they're not going to quite do that this week. I'm going to go with the Bombers. I'm going to go with the under on this one. I don't have much faith in Hamilton. Yes, they had a nice little comeback victory against the Ottawa Red Blacks. Yes, the Ottawa Red Blacks. I'm sorry, Ottawa's not the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the Bombers are coming off a huge victory. I don't think they're going to coast for the Ticats. I sure hope they don't. Or this is going to be a trap game. I don't really see it. I see the Bombers winning, and I could see it by well more than 6.5.
I miss Mike. I miss Mike's energy. I miss Mike's bold predictions on this show. So let me bring a little bit of Mike energy here for you. And
don't do it. Don't do it, man.
I'm going to do it. This is my upset of the week. I'm taking the Ticats to cover. I'm taking the Ticats to win this week against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I rattled it off earlier in the show. Yeah, you can write it down. I wrote it down in the document as well. There's proof of this. I think, I rattled off earlier in the show when we talked about storylines. The Bombers have not played great games on the road. I feel like a game against the Ticats is the type of game that's a trap game, and I think they've been playing better lately. Like, they beat Ottawa last week despite 4 days of rest against a team coming off a bye week. So, I've got that gut feeling on this one. I'm going to take the Ticats here to win this game. I'm going back and forth on the over-under. I feel like a Hamilton win, I would probably lean under, but I'm going to actually take the over because I could see I'm kind of towing the line on that one, and maybe this is more of a safe pick for me here. That if this does go the other direction, I think it's because the Bombers are scoring a decent number of points. But I think Hamilton could potentially put some points on the board in this game as well. So I'm going to take the Ticats to win this game with the over. We'll see how that goes. Adam's so shocked by this, he disappeared, and I don't know if he's coming back. There he is.
You know Hamilton's 1-5 at home, right?
I don't care. Big Mike energy, remember?
Well, somebody's got to do the big deal. Anyways.
Hey, Mike took the Detroit Lions to beat the Kansas City Chiefs this past week. So look what happened
and he was
there.
Right. That was a crazy part.
And he was right. And didn't he take that Riders upset over the BC Lions? So you know what? Shout out to Mike. I'm doing this one for him. And no, I am doing this. I believe in this one. We'll see what happens with it.
You know, Mike usually takes the reverse psychology on things, right?
What do I have to lose? Have you seen my betting average this year?
Fair. No, that is true.
All right, final game of the week. It's the Ottawa Redblacks visiting the BC Lions. BC is 9.5 point favorites. Over-under is at 46.5. I'm going to take the BC Lions to win this one and cover the 9.5 point spread. I think it's Ottawa going out west to the West Coast. I think it's BC coming off the bye. Ottawa came off their bye last week, and it was a disaster. And they let one slide against the Ticats. I just don't know if Ottawa's a good enough team to beat this well-rested Lions team. So I'm going to take the Lions to cover. I'm going to take the over on this one as well. I think I guess I went under on the Edmonton game. I thought I went over on all of them. But it seems like we're getting a lot of scoring lately, so I'm going to go with the Lions and the over. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, no, I'm going to go the same way. The Lions are going to blow out the Red Blacks. I think last week was the demoralizing and the kind of the nail in the coffin for the Red Blacks. Unfortunately, they just haven't had very much luck lately. Just generally trying to get something going. So I'm going to go with the Lions, and I'm going to go with the under. I don't know what it is about this game here. The Lions could either score a pile or they're going to score nothing. And my guess is they're going to score enough to beat the Red Blacks, and they're going to score enough they're going to be 10 points over the Red Blacks. But I just don't see much more than that. So, give me BC in the under.
All right, and Trey is taking the Red Blacks to cover, and he is taking the over in this matchup. Those are betting picks for this week. Last segment before we get to the wrap up here. I know we're on the time crunch of that. Adam's running out of battery on his phone, so we'll see if Adam disappears. That's probably why. But we'll go quick here. CFL Fantasy League results and matchups. The CFC Private Draft League this past week. Who had the top score? No, you don't want to talk about that one? On to the next?
No, I mean, yeah, we could just get that one. I mean, we got to get the phone going here and make sure.
Trey had the top score of the week, 106.5 points for him. Dalton Schoen, AJ Ouellette, big weeks for them. I had the next highest score of the week thanks to Tim White's 38.8, giving me 84.6 on the week. Wish you picked him up, Adam, or...
No comment. Move on.
All right. Mike had 79.9. Brady Oliveira, Kenny Lawler. Despite the 0 from Austin Mack, he still put up that total. Adam, 65.6 for yourself this week. Jake Mayer, you didn't want to pick him up. He was your highest scoring player of the week. So
all I could say is I got better than 17 points. So at least I'm allowed to stay in the podcast. Or in our podcast private draft. So
yeah, there you go. No relegation round for you. Mike still leads the way. I'm about 40 to 50 points behind him. Trey is 150 behind me. Adam, you're another 180 I think behind Trey, if my quick math is right.
I think next year I'm going to recruit Coach Phil, and he's going to go and run my fantasy team. I think I probably have a better chance.
Hey, there's no rule against that technically. In the CFL Podcast Fantasy League, where we play against other podcast hosts, this past week. You did fall to Team Trey. Trey got the win over you in that one. He had a huge week, 144 points. So, everything went Trey's way in fantasy, I feel like, this past week, and he's not even here to quote about it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when he had, like, I was looking at him, I'm like, you got Taylor Powell. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, that didn't end well for me, even though I had his play. I was trying to beat each player with their own, or each guy with their own player. I tried to beat Trey with Chad Kelly. Nope, that didn't work.
Did you not hear Coach Phil talk about bulletin board material, Adam? You don't need. It doesn't work. I had an off week because Austin Mack was my captain, so I did unfortunately fall to Oz from Rouge, White, and Blue. Standings, though, I still do hold on to the first spot. I've got my playoff spot clinched. You and Trey are in 9th and 10th, just outside the playoff spot, and there's 2 weeks to go. So you got to make up a bit of ground in these last 2 weeks. And I'm going to make sure you don't, because you and I face off this week, Adam. So let's go. Another matchup between the two of us. Looking forward to it.
All I could say is, if you got to play Superfan Mike in the playoffs, you know how that ends. So, you could just let me in.
No, I can't, because we'll get to the Discord league. I need to win. I need a good lineup this week. So Trey is facing off against the Argos Fancast this week, looking to pick up a win in that matchup there. That is it for that league. And shout out to our Discord members that are playing in our league with us there. A couple of them there. Adam, you beat me. You beat me in that matchup.
And I beat you with your old player, Tim White.
You got me with Tim White. I had 4 Ticats in my lineups and not the right one in Tim White. So I kind of knew the week was going to be over from there, and then the Mac ejection was just the rest of it from there. Trey won his matchup over Josh M. Mike lost his matchup to FM Fan, who is the first one to clinch a playoff spot. 6 teams make the playoffs. Mike is in the final playoff spot right now in 6th, and then you, me, and Trey are the next 3 teams. They're all trying to fight to get in. So
yes, we're just awesome at fantasy, aren't we, guys?
Yeah, it's chaos. Shout out to
who's the guy? Yeah, you got the shout out for that one guy there.
Shout out to Discord user Cheppy. Almost put up 200 points, and I think had the second highest score in fantasy in the entire on the entire global leaderboard. That is an incredible fantasy total. Also, shout out to Discord user Sandwiches, who's 4th on the season long overall leaderboard. So a lot of great fantasy players in the community there. Good news for you, Adam. Speaking of which, you faced the guy who's got the 4th highest overall on the leaderboard this week. You face off against Sandwiches this week. I'm hoping you get a loss. And Mike faces Josh M. And I face Trey. And the loser of us is probably not making the playoffs. So high stakes coming out of this week. Should be another fun week there.
I'll fill up my concession form, I think, because I ain't going nowhere right now if I got to play Sandwiches.
Well, hey, anything can happen in CFL fantasy. You almost won an NFL fantasy matchup this week, so.
Yeah, that was actually way closer than it should have been, to be honest. But, yeah, I'll take the almost win on that one.
If only it wasn't that Cowboys defense.
Or if, New York can learn how to buy a bloody offensive line.
Yeah. Poor Aaron Rodgers. Poor Aaron Rodgers. Poor New York Jets fans.
Yeah, and poor New York Giants fans.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, you guys just Daniel Jones is not doing nothing for you. Just saying.
Rough week for New York in football. Hey, Chris Streveler is available. Chris Streveler was at the Banjo Bowl this week, by the way, and it was quite the spectacle. It was great.
I'm just glad none of you guys tried to get a signature for me.
I did try to convince Trey to get your rider hat signed and then send it back to you in the mail, but I don't think that happened. Maybe it did. You'll find out when it arrives. All right, let's wrap things up. before Adam's phone dies here. Let me pull this up on the screen. So we'll be back again next week, same time, same place, week 16 preview. We'll be back to our regular weekly preview format there as well. So switched up the format a little bit tonight, but we'll go back to our usual next week. You can follow us on social media as well, on X at CF Countdown Pod. I am at Cooper Trooper 42 there. Mike's at Mike Garrell. Trey at Trey Harnesslink if you want to check out anything those guys have going on as well. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod there. Also, Adam, what else is going on these days for you, and where can people find it?
Mostly farming is still going on. I mean, we're getting some more harvest done. I think we should be done by the end of the week, unless it rains, which looks like it might. You can find me at Adam Stewart 1 over on the old X or Twitter or whatever it is called nowadays. The Elon social media network. I don't know. We'll just call it that nowadays. Yeah, and also be sure to follow Phil as well. Great guy, Coach Phil's Reacts. He's got some awesome content. Make sure you go check it out. Except for that 09 reaction. We don't want to see that video anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Huge thanks to Coach Phil for joining us tonight. That was a lot of fun to get to chat with him earlier on in the show. Make sure you check him out on Twitter at Coach Phil Reacts as well. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel, Coach Phil Reacts. Also, a lot of great content there that I recommend checking out. Also, check out the CFC Discord community if you haven't done so already. We've got live game chats, we've got CFL fantasy chatter, and betting picks, NFL chat. We've got some NFL channels going on there as well. Coach Phil is in the Discord, so if you want to chat more with Coach Phil as well, come hop into the Discord. Link is in the episode description. It's free to join. Sign up for a Discord account, join our server, and chat along with us and other members of our community. Also, whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate it if you do all the fun things such as like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of Adam and Coach Phil, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.